After the release of GTA 3, Rockstar mostly understood that third D was needed, and it was the key to success. While they would still release whole 2 2D GTA games, being Advance and Chinatown Wars, in the next 10 years following GTA 3, it would be a practically forgotten niche, as most other developers tried copying GTAs that were selling millions. It would take almost 10 years for nostalgia to catch up, and that's when probably the most influential 2D GTA clone would be released. While not the first game to test the waters of 2 dimensions outside of Rockstar themselves, Retro City Rampage was definitely the game that showed that 2Ds is quite enough to make a popular title. But was it actually good, or did it simply get carried by nostalgia? That's what I'm going to try and tell you today. Hello, I'm Tazuro, and I'm on a quest to beat and review every single 2D GTA clone out there. And luckily we haven't yet run out of titles that classify as such, at least for the next 5 or so videos. Retro City Rampage development technically started way before its eventual release. The year is 2002, and Brian Provinciano, I'm sorry for pronunciation butchering, was working on GTA 3 Demake for NES with a funny codename Grand Theft Auto. While very ambitious, writing his own NES dev kit and trying to make a game that would run on a real hardware, he'd later move to PC development to avoid all the limitations the development process had. While that prototype would never be finished as a full NES title, it would eventually become a part of actual Retro City Rampage as an emulated minigame. Well, let's dial back a little. Retro City Rampage released in October 2012 for PS3, PS Vita and PC, to pretty decent reviews averaging 7 out of 10. It would later get ported to more consoles such as Xbox 360, 3DS V, and what's most fascinating, MS-DOS. And it is bundled with Steam version, so if you have a retro PC setup, you might wanna try playing that on your own and see how it runs to yourself. At some point around the release of its sequel, Shakedown Hawaii, Retro City Rampage would receive an update called Retro City Rampage DX+, and that's the version that is now available for purchase. It took me a few minutes to figure out whether or not I had the right game version, as old Retro City Rampage is just not available, and naming DX+ definitely strikes as some sort of definitive edition type of bollocks. However, it is designed in such a way that if you want to, you absolutely could play original RCR by disabling all and any DX+ content via options menu. Before jumping to the game though, I absolutely must glaze this game for an abundance of various graphical settings. The game has 10 plus various color schemes with ability to render itself as a part of arcade cabinet or old handheld console, your granny's TV, Nintendo's Virtual Boy of all things, or just a regular modern title with no fancy graphics, in glorious 8-bit or retrofitted graphics. This kind of love and care only comes from the purest of hearts. The game begins in the 80s in the city of Thiefopolis, where our protagonist player gets caught in the messy heist, which ends up in him jumping to a phone booth that travels into an undetermined future of year 2000XX, where he meets Doc, who clearly is a reference to the Back to the Future, who then decides to help player to rebuild the time machine. And that's the main quest of this game, just building this time-traveling MacGuffin. It took me a good while to realize the prologue mission was technically set on the same map as the main game would be, just on a separate island. Given the fact that this island is only used in prologue and like one more mission, it isn't really hard to miss that, but just pointing the obvious out, I guess. Thiefopolis is fully open to us to explore as soon as the prologue ends, and it's probably a perfectly sized city for the game of this type. Once you know it, it would be taking roughly 1 minute to drive east to west, as it's very small, but quite detailed, with many buildings referencing retro games or movies. There's not a single area in town that isn't used for at least one of the missions, which makes all of its design feel purposeful and exploration feel natural. It has a few secrets here and there that you might miss if you don't keep your eye too close, but it's probably one of the easiest games on the planet to 100%, including all the challenges and collectibles, given how much there is, just because you will scout most of the city naturally, traveling between the missions and during the missions. Numerous buildings can be entered, and while some contain nothing and are purely mission dressing, others do have their own secrets, minigames and cosmetics hidden. For how small your character is on the screen, it compensates with an astonishing 100 plus styles, which not only change your player, his name's Player, portrait in cutscenes, but also have a unique model in-game, even if it is just funny spiky cloud hair or Snake's bandana. The game has around 50 story missions from the top of my head, which sounds terribly long, but in fact it is the polar opposite. Many missions chain into one another, starting a new mission before previous one is over, and most of them are also very short and primitive. World map is also not big, as I've already mentioned, which leads to a minimal amount of pointless driving from A to B. But here we are getting to my main issue, I guess. It's hard to call it an issue per se, so let me just elaborate. Golden standard of game mechanic progression would be something like do something new every so often to keep players engaged and entertained. Introduce new enemy, new weapons, new kind of hazards, yada yada, you get the drill. Well, this game decides that every so often is every single mission. One of the first missions in the game requires you to help a Solid Snake lookalike called Major Lee to rescue some guy. It starts as a tutorial, it just teaches you how to drive, punch dudes, jump, yada yada. Though it is the second time the game teaches you all of that, but that's kind of a joke of the mission in a way. And then it suddenly just transitions into a stealth mission where you can put a box on top of yourself, a mechanic that is not used for the rest of the game, and it's clearly an MGS reference. And after you do that stealth section, which is like 30 seconds long, you end up on a military base in a scene that resembles cannon fodder games where you fight a bunch of enemies, drive a car, and escape with the guy. Only then to start fighting a boss. Only then to start escaping a base in a sequence that resembles Contra games. And then it transitions into the Battletoads Turbo Tunnel. And that one mission goes for like 10 minutes tops. It's crazy how much this game is willing to pay homage after homage and move to the next thing, introduce new cameos, references, mechanics, and so on, to the point where you start questioning, like, what is this game? There's dozens of game mechanics that get introduced only to be forgotten and almost never or never utilized again, which is both impressive and sad. Impressive because it takes a decent effort to invent so many minigames to the point that the game kind of turns into WarioWare with GTA elements. Something that GTA Chinatown Wars did to an extent, but this game just dialed it up to a crazy 11 out of 10. And it's sad because some of those mechanics and minigames are absolute dog shit, annoying, clunky, and out of place. For every good retro NES sequence, this game has some silly crocodile pit swinging, drunk driving, or sweat jumping minigame. Yep, you heard that right. Which are just terrible in either core design or its execution. I understand that while playing what's essentially an anthology of minigames, not everyone would adore every single little thing, but I also think that devs, or mainly Brian as he's the project lead in most of its aspect, also understood that some of this shit just does not stick. One of the best missions in the late game is an evolution of Contra-like levels, which there is quite a few of in the game. It has difficult fights based around you being very much familiar with how enemies behave, how weapons in your arms behave, and what you do in this level is you beat room by room while it gets more and more difficult, encounters getting more tricky, before it concludes in a glorious carnage in the final room. But unfortunately, for every interesting and engaging mission, there is also some unnecessary and goofy ones. And I'm not trying to say that goofy can't be good. I'm actually not sure what I'm saying, except the fact that this game made me feel extreme ADHD. Regardless of that, I was never bored, which is more important than being sometimes annoyed, at least in my book. As there is a ton of mechanics, there is also a ton of weapons. About half of them are melee, which are hardly usable in normal circumstances, but the game tries to make every single one used at least once, so that you at very least have an idea how they work. Most, if not all, weapons are used in score challenges, which are this game's variations of kill frenzies. For some reason there are main challenges and secondary challenges, though they aren't really different in their core design. I think secondary challenges might be giving you less time, but from a general perspective, that's exactly the same thing. Divided into two categories though, get kills or get score. Some of them are more annoying than the others, but that's mostly it. The annoying part comes from the fact that the score ones rely heavily on you getting combos, which might not just work out at all, and the kill ones heavily require on spawns, and sometimes the challenges require you quite a lot of kills to get a gold medal on. Now, if you'll excuse me, I absolutely have to go on a rant that has to do close to nothing with the game. You see, this microphone is a HyperX Solocast microphone. I swear this is not an ad read. It is a USB microphone, and which I stopped using them a long time ago. I was using jack ones. I just got this one gifted, and it sounded nice, and I thought, hey, I'm gonna start using it. So this mic, for some reason, can make some applications freeze for an unknown amount of time, for no reason. I had no idea why. Most notable are GTA 2 and RCR. The thing about GTA 2 isn't super annoying. Like, if the level doesn't load for long, you kind of can deal with it, because all you have to do is essentially you unplug it, plug it back, and there you go. The sound is already back, and the lag will disappear naturally as I do this. With RCR, though, it would happen after every single challenge restart, and only challenge restart. Missions don't do this. So after an unholy amount of time I spent online trying to figure out what is wrong, I updated all the drivers, I tried different cables, different ports, all the weird stuff. Nothing was working. I probably would have given up, but then my good friend Sui just showed me an interesting page about the other HyperX mic, which was saying something like, hey, I had an issue which was fixed by me plugging it into USB 2 slot. I don't have a USB 2 slot, but I have this piece of trash, which actually doesn't work, but it does have a USB 2 slot, like over here. And look at that, I want to plug it, it doesn't do that, it doesn't lag anymore. I wasted 2 whole evenings doing this shit, trying to figure this stuff out, so I don't know, I feel justified wasting 2 minutes of your time. And maybe for some of you, somehow it will be helpful. I don't know. Now, let's get back to the topic. Next thing after the guns is vehicles. There's plenty, and what's important, they feel extremely nice to use. Driving is very responsive, and you can fit cars into tight corners with close to no issue. The main downside is most cars feel pretty slow, still enough to do aforementioned east to west in 1 minute, but fast cars can do it in half the time, and some cars are unintuitively fast, like Fire Truck is, for example. Though every single vehicle in a game can be made fast by just chugging coffee, which is this game's mechanic, which essentially puts on a timed turbo mode, which otherwise is unlocked after you beat the game, as a permanent thing that you can just turn on in the menu. And while it makes driving faster, it also makes everything else faster. Shooting, running, enemies shooting on you, and so on, so it's very easy to die. What's not very easy is to fall victim to police in this game. As a GTA clone, there is naturally a wanted level system. It is a bit weird how it works, as it will take quite some effort to get above what's essentially a wanted level 1. Police is pretty anemic until you reach wanted level 3 or 4, which is honestly so hard to do that unless missions just sets it up for you, you will likely never reach on your own. Though, at the same time, police isn't the ultimate distraction from whatever it is that you're doing in a game, and mostly are there to keep things slightly in check and make you move a bit more than not at all. There's also a couple of power-ups in the game. I didn't really particularly mention any of them because they are story-related and they're kind of spoilery. I'm probably not even going to include any of the footage, but some of them make you travel really fast, and some of them are really broken, and they're all fun to use, so that's a good thing because there isn't as many of them as there is weapons, so all of them are pretty good. And last but in no way the least thing to mention about this game, the soundtrack. It is simply put brilliant. There is around 100 different tracks, short and long, all of them are 8-bit, composed by 3 people, Freaky DNA, Vert, and Norin Rad. There is a theme for like all the different buildings you can go to, all the arcade games you play, radio music, and so much more. And you might have guessed it, music just plays all the time in this game, because it just tries to be how the NES games are. So it isn't limited to just vehicles as GTA games tend to do. The only times the music won't be playing is when you finish Weapon Challenge, since it just defaults to playing nothing for whatever reason, and you're just staying there in the awkward silence until you enter any vehicle and music just comes back. You can play all the music from the in-game jukebox in the options menu, however, it is not possible to purchase a soundtrack on Steam to play it in the comfort of your own player. So YouTube it is for me. In my 10 hours of gameplay, there were not that many issues with the game, apart from the aforementioned microphone disaster. I think I had some mission glitch on me once or twice, and there were a few gimmicky missions that made me very, very angry. I also hated the fact that the subway entrances and exits are different indoors areas. For some reason, the only reason I'm mentioning this is because I spent like 20 or 30 minutes running around town trying to find last package, only then to figure out that the subway on the other island, when you arrive to it, it's a different indoor area. When, like, if you go out and go back in again, it's a different indoor area, and it has the last package that I was searching for. It's so dumb, but it's a small thing, really. Man, you fuck... Oh my god, it's different! Oh, fuck off. This is different subway when you enter it. I didn't even look at it. Oh my god. Retro City Rampage is a glorious throwback to the 80s and 90s in the spirit and in body. It is fast, snappy, funny, difficult when it needs to be, and extremely entertaining. The game's pace and flow are so good that even my awful habit of sidetracking to do the 100% stuff at random points of the playthrough just didn't feel like they were dragging the game down. It is masterfully crafted and absolutely deserves all the praise I've heard being sung in its direction. Even though it does get pretty overwhelming with mechanics at times, I keep thinking back on it and I will likely do some speedruns of this game in future. It is a solid 9 out of 10 from me, and I don't think I can recommend it enough, since, as I said before, it's kinda hard to just talk about positive stuff. It's much easier to trash games, but this game is simply put good, and no other adjectives will make it more entertaining to explain how good it is. So now I'm very much excited to play its sequel, Shakedown Hawaii, but it's something I'm going to be doing next year. And that's it for the Retro City Rampage. Not really much to say. The game is, as I said, good, and I don't really want to spoil it to, like, I would have to go and show you every single small thing and talk about every single mechanic. Like dissecting the game bit by bit to really give you any more idea on what's going on. The main outline I've given you. So if you want to see more of me playing this game, the full playthrough is on the second channel. The link is in description, and at the end of the video there will be a link. There should be a link. I do imagine there is a link. And for all the other GTA 2D GTA or GTA 2 related, or sometimes some shooter related content, feel free to stay here. If you already subscribed, great, thanks, keep coming back, I love you all. And if you're just coming back while not being subscribed, wait, maybe you should, and maybe leave a like and a comment. It's been T0. I hope you enjoyed this short video. I'll be seeing you next time. Goodbye.